Hey, what's up, everybody? What's going on? Welcome to Real Review. I know you're probably sitting there wondering, what is there to review? Nothing except for I'm just going to be giving my thoughts on WandaVision and and Falcon and the Winter Soldier. But not just me. This is a special episode. I have guests. Isn't that amazing? Isn't that great? People like me enough to come on here and nerd out with me. Anyway, I'm your host, John F. Thomas. Welcome. If you're tuning in, please hit the like button, subscribe, hit the share button, leave a comment, let me know what you think, and yada yada yada, etc. You know the drill. But yeah, just hit the like button to let other people see this and generate an analytics. I don't like thinking about this stuff, but you can help me not think about it as much. Anyway, before we really get into it, like I said, it's a special episode because I got guests. We're gonna hit that intro, and then I'm gonna be right back, and we're gonna break down into all of this stuff. So we'll be right back. It's the real review. It's the real review. It's the real review. All right. Welcome back. Let me bring in my guest, Mike Nunoz. He is a director and writer. What's going on, man?
Hey, not much, man. I'm just here hanging out, ready to talk about some good old Marvel stuff,
Yeah, man. Because I'm talking about Marvel, which a lot. Which I guess actually I'll let him explain. So let me bring in my next guest before we really dive into him. Next guest is Amari Dixon, a professional photographer extraordinaire. You probably wouldn't know that because she's hiding in a corner like a ninja taking pictures, and you didn't even know she was taking pictures till she showed you the picture. Hey, you want to see this? I was like, oh, that looks great. When did you do that? So that's
very, very true. I am a creeper.
So we have our guest, and she's a Marvel fan as well. Excuse me. But anyway, Mike, explain your fandom and what you love, like how much of a fan that you are, because you've told me before, but let everybody.
So I've been a comic book nerd basically my whole life. Because it was kind of one of those things. It's kind of like how Martin Scorsese had movies because he had asthma and the kind of thing. I had the similar concept, but instead of it was movies too, but mostly comic books because since I grew up in the 90s, we grew up with nothing but DC, Marvel, just all these TV shows and cartoons and comic books all simultaneously. So I really dove into it, and since my older brothers were really into X-Men and Spider-Man and Batman, Superman, whatever, I really jumped into it. And over the years, it progressed, and I just kept diving in more and more and more and more to the point where as a teenager, I didn't realize they were ever going to make more comic book movies outside of Batman and Spider-Man or the X-Men films. So it brings me to the Marvel Cinematic Universe. When I saw Iron Man, which is about 12 or 13 years now that it came out. And about that time frame. And I promised myself that I was going to stick with it no matter what it's been. And now we're 20 something movies deep and 3 shows deep as well. So, and that brings me to here, I just collect a lot of comic book knowledge in my brain.
Nice. So, man, that's what's up, man. I like comics too, but man, it's hard to keep up with them after a while. And especially I didn't have a comic shop necessarily nearby. So it was just kind of like, I just had X-Men TV show, Spider-Man, animated Batman series, which is awesome. Superman animated series and stuff like that. And then after a while, like once I got like into high school, I can drive and stuff. I can get comics here and stuff like that. So yeah, but I envy you a little bit, but it's okay.
well, thanks. I mean, I just live that nerdy life, homie. That's all I do.
Nerdy life, man. That's all
Nerd for life.
I'm already repping this Batman hat all the time,
Oh. Okay. Yeah, I got my Superman shirt and come at me, bro. Here. All right.
That's fine words.
I know. They're buds, though. They're like best friends. It's cool.
They're cool. They're cool.
Friendly relationship. It's more so Batman's fault. He he'd be telling him to get out of his town, and Superman's just visiting, trying to say what's up. What are you doing here?
That's a whole nother video right there.
Right? Yeah.
We can talk about for hours.
Right? Yeah. So Amari, okay, introduce yourself. How much of a fan are you? Like,
I'm a huge fan. I think I got introduced kind of into that world and realm through anime first, military brat. So my brother was a Marine and he sent me anime. And some of the first anime he sent me was Akira, the Guyver. And then I just started diving into more anime. And then as I got a little bit older, started diving into graphic novels and comic books. And I just found my world in that space, and I started loving comic books and things like that. And then for me, it was already huge. I was just diving into the characters from the DC and Marvel Batman animated series, as John said before, one of my favorite. X-Men series, still to this day, one of my favorite anime series, one of my favorite X-Men comic books, all that jazz. And then definitely like Spawn was one of my things. I used to, when I probably shouldn't have, watched the HBO Spawn series. I wasn't supposed to be watching that because it came on at certain times of the night and it wasn't for me at my age, but I was watching it anyway. Uh, Spawn was like one of my favorites. And then it's spiraled from there to where I'm just huge, big San Diego Comic-Con lover. Was going for the last like 4 or 5 years with the crew, and I still have tickets for whenever it's going to happen. I have my tickets on back order from last year, now this year, so hopefully by next year I'll be able to go. But yeah, I'm just huge comic book fan. Figurines over here and Funko Pops here and all above my head. It's a problem. It's become a thing. So it's a great problem though. I love it. So thanks for having me here to talk and nerd out. Right. I'm so excited to talk and nerd out because then I don't feel so alone because I'm just like, does anyone else talk about this? Because like I don't feel bad talking about comic books for hours and nerd stuff for hours because it can go on.
I see Corey in the mix. What's up, Corey, man? Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate it. And for everybody that's tuning in, please hit the like button so the more people can see this. Leave your comments so let me know what you think. So, okay, let's just dive right into it. All right. WandaVision that show came out and it wrapped, and then Falcon and Winter Soldier came out and it wrapped. And so, first off, what are your thoughts on WandaVision? And I guess we'll just go like ladies first. So, Amari, go ahead and give you your thoughts on what do you think about WandaVision?
For me, WandaVision, I really enjoyed it from the get-go. I think it started off like again, the series, the sitcoms from your I Love Lucy's to your Dick Van Dykes. I think it was just a whole nother spin coming off of Endgame and everything like that. And here it is, you're thrown into this world of what happened with Wanda. And I really, I just think I'm really enjoying the fact that they're like really giving me these in-depth looks into these characters. Because I mean, in the movies, there's only so much you can do with each character when there's like 5 or 12 other characters in the movie going at once. So we introduced Wanda, and of course we're wondering like, okay, we know Vision is gone, and like we're really diving into pretty much, which I've come to realize, her PTSD from everything that happened. I mean, she literally went through all the stages of grief through every one of her episodes that she was like kind of like progressing into these genres of movies. And then of course, you know, when we all know it's spoiler time. So as you go down the line, you find out that the reason why she has adapted her kind of trauma at this point into these different genres is because that's what she used to watch back in Sokovia when her and her little brother were there. And so it was just I really loved how we've got a chance to introduce more characters because, again, I've been the person that's always said there's so many characters in the Marvel universe and we've really only seen like this much. And we've only seen like of characters in this large span of a Marvel universe. Not saying taking anything away from Kevin Feige and what they've done. They've done a really wonderful job to build the base for now that we can just like start throwing characters out there and like really bringing them in and like introducing us. So I really enjoyed it. I thought it was fun. I really enjoyed, like I said, the I Love Lucy's, the Dick Van Dykes, all that stuff, the kind of references there. And then, of course, you know, I was very happy that I believe she's going to be called Spectrum, I believe it was introduced in here. All the sub characters, which is a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. I laughed, and then it got real serious and real heavy real fast. And I was like, whoa, this is a lot. So I really enjoyed it. I think for them, Marvel came pretty strong out the gate with WandaVision. They just was just like they smacked it out the park with that one really quick. I enjoyed it a lot.
All right, cool. All right, Mike, what are your thoughts on it? What are your thoughts on WandaVision?
I mean, I agree. It was definitely a very, I'm gonna say, it's a very ballsy move on Marvel because up until this point they played it very safe. Up until maybe Infinity War / Endgame, they played it very, very safe. And to kind of say on that, it still kind of plays it into the TV shows a little bit, but not as much. I feel like we're able to explore characters, especially with Wanda, who's literally one of the strongest characters in the X-Men franchise, in the Avengers franchise. She is just a strong character, and what she goes through in the whole House of M story that they adapted was a great jumping off point because they were able to make this world and this reality within her head that shows you, like she said, the PTSD of her trauma of her love being murdered, like literally being murdered in front of her and breaking down and not being able to accept the fact that he is dead. He's got a hole in his head and she just saw the dead body and she doesn't know how to react to that, which is a true thing. Like if you see someone and you love die in front of you the way that it kind of does in this very horrific way, what does happen to you? What's the repercussion of that? Does her pain manifests into this world that she creates out of her own head that because it's from when she was a kid, which once again, that all connects back to her concept of how her trauma has been building up for years and years and years up until the point where she got experimented on and these powers came out and her brother died in front of her. All these things of how it's all built up to this final moment. The shot of Vision there, like seeing that last moment of him just dead on the ground, it's haunting. And for Marvel to finally step out of the more kid friendly-esque way they were going, and I thank the Russo brothers for that because they definitely went in a direction. Because even if you go back to Captain America, Winter Soldier, and Civil War, they definitely decided to push the Marvel universe in this direction, at least the cinematic universe, into this much darker, adult-oriented world, which I felt needed to happen because if you go back and watch Phase 2, it kind of teeters with the idea of it, but not really. And then you get Winter Soldier, and you get this completely different film. And then years later, you get to WandaVision, and you have this idea of this concept of these characters that they are people. There's a person inside of that hero, and later we'll talk about Falcon and Winter Soldier, and then I'll talk about that more as well. Is that how these characters interact in this world, and how that reality affects them too? Because we just see them as the hero. They're out there, fighting bad guys from space, and we don't think of them as this person. And this comes back as well to Spider-Man, because the reason why people relate to Spider-Man because he is the most relatable, he has the most problems. But my wife, who is not a comic book fan at all, loves Wanda after WandaVision. Like she is obsessed with her. So she connects so much on those levels of like that pain that she sees through her eyes, and she understands what she's talking about and how she feels. And I think that's a great, and the performance by Elizabeth Olsen knocked it out of the park. Like I always thought she was really good, but you never really got to see that moment with her. And I think finally we got to see that with the show, and the show explores that concept.
Yeah.
Sorry,
I really like
I apologize.
No, I love your part about how Marvel played it safe because in regards to being serious and like kind of dealing with the fact that these people are real people and they have trauma, and they kind of touched on it, and they almost had it with Endgame with Thor, because Thor was like, that's why it was one of my favorite Chris Hemsworth Thor transition. It wasn't because he was big Thor, it was because you saw him in a range of what he was. He's a god, but he's still a person, and he's like gone through so much trauma. And they touched it there, and it was kind of like, it kind of came off more, it was serious, but it was still more jokey a little bit in some aspects. But I took it as like, I was like, I love that part with Chris Hemsworth. He was amazing, like that PTSD of everything that he had went through with not killing Thanos, his parents. And then now I'm very happy Marvel has like really dove into this, like actually being serious, which again, we'll talk about WandaVision and what they did with Captain America, Winter Soldier now, how they really dove into the seriousness there. I was just like, I had to, but we'll talk about that later.
Right. And speaking on that trauma, like Iron Man 3 stepped into that realm as well with Tony's PTSD about what happened in the Battle of New York.
Oh yeah, anxiety.
But my problem with that is that they stepped into it, and then quickly in the next movie, it was gone. Age of Ultron came in, and it was like, all right, bye. We don't need you anymore. We don't need you, trauma. We don't need you to think about that anymore.
We don't need that serious no more.
Even though the whole film is literally about him dealing with the fact that he just fought an alien that came from space.
Yep.
You know, and that ruined his life. Ooh.
Yes. And he's traumatized.
I see that. And the siren. I was like, heard that.
Yeah, where did that come from?
Sorry, the cops are outside my Airbnb.
I gotta go. I gotta go, guys. Bye. No, sorry. That's how loud they are. Right. That's how loud they are, even with my windows closed. They go by pretty loud. Sorry about that.
You're good. But yeah, so I guess my question from all of that, and this is very beautiful, guys. It's really beautiful. Should Wanda be in jail? That's my question. I'm coming to a lot of people. They talk about this stuff, but I come with the hard hitting questions, right? Okay, because you're not just gonna have just a regular recap on. Oh, this is beautiful. This is turn on.
Wait.
Should be arrested.
Well, you can go first. You go. Yes.
Well, I'm gonna say no, but also because she's now transitioning, and this is because I'm looking at what's gonna happen in the future here. Because we got Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, directed by my boy Sam Raimi. So what's it called? So the idea of the fact that she's actually becoming a villain now, and she started off as a air quote unquote villain in Age of Ultron, but her concept of that she's actually becoming this otherworldly villain essentially to kind of create her children out of this alternate dimension. Even if she does get arrested, I don't think she would be in jail for very long. They wouldn't be able to keep her in the raft. Like, that's the only place you can put her is the raft. And even then, the raft itself seems pretty easy to break out of. Cap got out of there with the rest of the Avengers at the end of Civil War. So, you know, like I said, she's transitioning into a villain, which I don't think she realizes she's transitioning into a villain. But she's doing it because she wants to find her children that she manufactured at her own head and bring them into the reality, you know?
Okay, so this has always been my thing, and y'all probably heard it, you know, because I've been talking about WandaVision, I guess, from the first episode all the way to the end. But I like Marvel, you know, of course, because I like X-Men and like Spider-Man, is, you know, all this great. Their power levels, the scaling is ridiculous in Marvel, though. So that's why I say that. I'll be honest. I'll be transparent. I do like DC in that sense over Marvel because it's just like, oh, we got X-Men in themselves. You got, this is a mega level mutant, and it's just like, okay, this isn't a mega level mutant. Like, wait, what? Oh, and this isn't a mega level. Like, oh, wait, hold on. How are these people this powerful?
Wait till you meet the Sentry, man. Wait till Sentry gets involved. Once Sentry comes in, it's completely going to be a game changer. Because Sentry is basically Marvel Superman, and he can literally obliterate everything.
Well, I thought that was Gladiator.
We also got Galactus. Don't forget about Galactus. But there's a couple of beings out there that still haven't been explored in the films. Sentry, Galactus, which ignored Rise of Silver Surfer. We ignored the Cloud Galactus. Kane the Conqueror, is that his name? I forget his name. Krang the Conqueror. We got a lot of strong characters out there in the universe that have not been introduced yet. And Thanos was a really great choice, and I mean, despite what's happening with Joss Whedon right now, that he picked that there was going to be this character that was going to be the driving force for all these movies, and which is kind of quick that they introduced that character, but you know. But yeah, we got a lot of more strange and powerful beings out there.
Yeah,
Dormammu's in there for like a second, you know.
Yeah, for Dormammu's powerful. It's like there's so there's like in the span of all this universe that he's created, which they've done a great job. There's like this is as many characters that we've seen, and it was like, and that was something that I felt like I loved what they were building, but even by the time Age of Ultron had happened, I was like, can I get some more characters up in here? I mean, I knew I was getting Vision, but I was like, can I get another one? Can I get some more? Because I love all the characters you've given me, but I was like, I was almost getting a little tired of seeing them. And even Civil War, I was like, so yeah, I love you gave me Black Panther. Thank you. Finally, yay. I was like, Civil War, I'm like, could I have gotten a couple more? Because the Civil War battle that I had in my mind was way bigger.
That panel in the comic book is so beautiful. It's one of the most beautiful pieces of art ever. It's this 2-page panel of everyone just going against each other. In the dead center, you see Iron Man and Cap. And then in the movie, you get like 10 people.
It was like, yes, 5 on here, 5 on here, running to each other in the empty airport. I was like, okay.
Oh, that's it?
I was like, that's it? Okay, fine. All right. I'm just gonna take it. But yeah, and I get it. It's hard because it's a lot. And it's because these comic books, like John was saying before, they go in depth and it's really a lot to adapt. So I can see why they didn't, but I just wish I would have had like maybe 10 on each side, like 20 against 20, 40 characters. I was like, I wanted a little bit more, but you know, they're still good. They're good.
I mean, well, you know, I'll say as a basically kind of like an outsider, because I'm not that huge of a Marvel fan. It was cool to me, you know, for me to, and I think that's for like the audiences, and kind of goes back to what Mike was saying, like as far as like the people who are kind of outside of the Marvel fandom in this sense, not your typical Marvel fan, but where like his wife Alexis is like, oh, her favorite character is Wanda, and it's just like, how many people would actually? I mean, like, I guess for mainstream audiences, like who would really say that? Like that's really rare to say, like, hey, this before obscure character is my favorite, and it's just like, wait, what? You know, you can pick between Spider-Man, Spider-Gwen, I don't know, like Thor, and all these other Hulk, you know, and it's like, oh no, Wanda, but also like Wanda can back up why she was. It's not just like this Rudy Poo of a character. Like Wanda is really strong. Which I mean, I respect the development now, but I just hated that they waited to develop her for this long. Because that's the only. I mean, but as with anything, and Marvel has laid out a great template, especially thanks to Kevin Feige. Huge thanks to him, because if that's what Warner Brother needs. But anyway, that's another topic. Like thanks to him, he was able to uplift from the comics, the great things about the comics, to make it into a movie, and to really weave all these things and connect all these things together. Is it perfect? No, but who else is doing it on their level? So I mean, the only critiques I have is like very small critiques. It's not even a critique like, oh, this completely ruined the entire movie for me, the entire franchise. Like, no. I mean, the only thing that I had a critique on was just like, I wish I would have cared more about Wanda leading up to the WandaVision. I mean, I care now. So, I mean, they've accomplished the past to make me care, which is good. And the same thing with like Falcon. It's like, I wish I would have cared more leading up into Falcon and Winter Soldier. Because, man, which is kind of sad, because we'll stay on that. Man, I'll talk about that in a second, but we'll stay on Wanda for the moment. But yeah, so I mean, but they basically did a good job, and I thought that was a good start. You know, you had all these different the different eras that she was going through, which I thought was really cool, and you know, like callbacks to all the different amazing shows like Bewitched. Even I Dream of Jeannie vibes, to the Brady Bunch, to Malcolm in the Middle, to Modern Family, you know, just going through all, and it's just like, wow, that's really amazing that they were able to do that. So I think they did a good job. I did wish that there was in going back to what Amari was talking about, like introducing more characters. I do wish that there was a bigger villain outside of Agatha, which I guess ultimately the biggest villain was Wanda, if you really want to, think about it. But Agatha, you know, but I was also kind of disappointed, because I kept hearing, oh, Senor Scratchy. Everybody was like, oh, like the rabbit. That was supposed to be her son, whatever, but we didn't even really see anything with that. And it was just kind of like, okay. And I think at least with that season, I felt like there should have been one more episode because episode 8 like really like to me pumped the brakes. It was just like driving pretty good, and all of a sudden it's like, okay, we're gonna creep until episode 9 is like, oh, now we're racing again, and it's just like, whoa, like so the pacing seemed kind of like a little off to me, but I felt like they just needed like one more episode in there, and honestly, I kind of felt almost the same with maybe Falcon and Winter Soldier, just like one more episode, which I think they were supposed to be more, but I guess because of the pandemic, the story that they did have was a little too close to home, so they didn't really want to connect it in that way, which I think they should have just done it anyway. Like, who cares? But, you know, whatever. That's me.
Can we give a shout out to Catherine Hahn, though? Because, like, I've loved her as an actress for a very long time, and she rarely ever got played like that, and now, like, her as Agatha was the best thing. Like, that song, I have that song on my Spotify. It was Agatha. Oh, I like, that was like, and I killed Sparky too. I swear, I watched that over and over for several times just because it was so great. And I love Catherine Hahn. She's very great. She's a great comedian. I love her as an actress. And I think, like I said, I wish there could have been a bigger villain, but I was like, she really played that really well. I really enjoyed Catherine Hahn as Agatha in the show. She was like really great. She's one of my favorites.
She did a bit. I definitely give it to her because she is definitely one of the bright spots in all, like, in that show, because I was like, man, she is having fun. She was fun, and I'm along with the ride. It was and I killed Sparky too, and I was just like, oh man, that's just you trash. But you messy, but it's like the messy where it's just like, you know, your friend be talking about stuff and you know it's wrong. Don't be saying that, don't. And you giggle and laugh.
She was that.
You know, so yeah, she's like that. So
she was like that throughout the whole transition. Every like era, she was that person. She was definitely that comic relief in every era where she had those really, really funny one-liners, and she was just coming in like doing just all type of crazy stuff. And then when she flips, it was like, oh, okay, I see you. So yeah, I really got to give it to her for that. She was great.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, especially as an actor too. Like she killed it. She killed it. Just from an acting standpoint, it's just like, wow. Like I completely believe you. You are this character, and you know, she did a really great job. Like, yeah. I mean, so anyway, Mike, you got any thoughts on? Any extra thoughts that I didn't even think about?
Catherine Hahn was great. The thing was like when I first saw the first episode, she pops in as Agnes, and I was like, that's Agatha. Like in my head, just instantly, I was like, that, and because I saw the little pen on her blouse, and I was like, that's Agatha. And my other friend got that too. Yeah. And then I was just like, first of all, she's the only one that shows up in the first episode out of nowhere, not invited. We have no context of who she is. She just appears. And in my head, I was like, she's gonna be another witch. And I was like, why do you mean by that? I'm like, well, I had explained who Agatha was originally in the comics, and she's like, oh, really? Is that who you think it is? I'm like, I'm dead certain. I'm like, I know the Marvel formula well enough at this point that there's always one person, there's always a wolf in sheep's clothing, and they always introduce it in the first scene. In every Marvel thing, they always introduce it, and one of the first 10, 15 minutes of it, you'll see him. Taking it back to Obadiah Stane, you know, he's there right off the bat. Who gets Tony, attacked?
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. Eventually, the Power Broker. You know, we don't get to see her until like a few episodes in, but you know.
Yeah.
But yeah, same thing. It's a constant thing that they play with, and so it's my brain always thinks that when I'm watching a Marvel film. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, that person's gonna be the bad guy. it just instantly just clicks. And as a screenwriter myself, like it's I'm trying not to break it down in my head, and I'm just trying to be there and enjoy it and just watch it. Yeah. But
as a writer,
it just clicks in there, and I'm like, inciting incident. Okay, that's that person. This is what's gonna happen. Oh, there's a villain. That's the antagonist, right there.
Well, see. I always thought that she was like the assistant to whoever was really pulling the strings. You know, I felt like, you know, because you know how they sometimes they'll show like, oh, this is the villain, but oh, that's not even really the villain. This is the villain. You know, like this is the person behind the scene. This is because I don't know. She just kind of had like assistant kind of vibes. Like I always felt like there's something off about her, especially when she came in. But I mean, they did it pretty well by covering up because she's like the quirky neighbor, and it's just like, you know, and that's how they kind of used to be, you know, when you, especially on the TV shows, and especially if you live in the South, you have some people that are just very friendly and they'll kind of impose themselves into you, but it's kind of like that Southern hospitality kind of thing. And when she came in the house and blah, 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 I was just like, you know what, that's what happens in the old TV shows. But I was just like, so I guess she's going to be the friend, but also she's a little bit too friendly in a sense, but also that kind of plays along with her character. So it was a great way of just kind of like, okay, we're just going to kind of slip this under the radar. Like, yeah, you might feel something, but you don't know just yet. And then a way that they kind of threw me off too, kind of, was when she was sitting in the car at the stop sign over there. I forgot the name of the street, but Vision walked over there and he saw her and he was like, what's going on? And I was like, okay, that's a great way to throw me off the trail. Because I was just like, okay.
Hear a song.
Man, yeah. Then I was just like, oh, dude. So yeah,
he was playing everybody the whole time. Man. Like, and I love that's part of I love how they went back and showed you every time. Oh, you thought I wasn't, but I was.
Yeah.
Once that witch laugh came out, I was like, no, yeah, she's Agatha, all right. I'm like, you can't toy with me.
Right.
I mean, that's the thing. I'm also kind of suspicious of nosy like white folk because being Mexican, you know, like I always had that growing up as a kid. So when I see, you know, a nosy white person come over to the house, I'm like, I don't know if I trust you very much. So I'm like, are you gonna report me to the ICE? Like, I don't know what's going on here. Are you actually being friendly? Like, so I instantly myself have a nervous, like, I don't know, nervous reaction, but just instantly suspicious of that. So when I saw that in this, I was like, I don't know if I trust you. That's
I don't know
you don't click with me right. Like,
yeah, it's like, I don't know, you might be a Karen. I don't know. Say the wrong thing and you call the police on me. No, I'm good.
I don't know.
Call before you come, please.
But then again, that's just me. That's just my
right. No, but it's so one of the things I was saying, actually, why hasn't this girl, going back to Wanda, why hasn't she gotten therapy? And I'm about to wrap it up with Wanda on this. But she needs therapy, and she basically kidnapped the whole town, and it's just like, hey, you need to talk to a therapist, okay? And they talk about therapy isn't really available for people of color. It's like, man, you work for the government, but unless she doesn't have a lot of money, like Sam, even though you work for the government, which I guess, I mean, there's so much stuff I can stretch to, like, you know, like I can believe. It's like, hey, you got powers and all that stuff. Now you want me to believe that the government isn't paying you, so I guess the government isn't paying Wanda that much. And it's just like, man, I don't know. It's just she needs therapy. It's like,
I am happy. Before we wrap up Wanda, I am happy. One more character. I was so happy. It's Monica Rambeau. I thought that was like really awesome. I thought that was a really cool scene. How people kind of faded back in, how people blipped back in, because in her scene, she was sitting at the hospital bed of her mom and she kind of like, she fleckled, like she like dusted back in. And I thought that was really cool because again, we don't get many scenes where we see what happened when people were snapped and then when they came back. We don't really see a lot of that. And so here you got a chance to see it, her development with S.H.I.E.L.D. and everything. And then of course, now I'm really happy I got her character development as she gets ready to move into Captain Marvel 2, as now you understand, like I love how they introduced her here instead of like in the movie, because now I have like this, I already had a connection with her anyway, you know, Black female superhero, yay. And so, but now it's like, I have like this even more connection because like I got her story. I got more of her story, like how she got her powers. Like there was this really great building, and now she's ready to, and now as we see at the end of WandaVision, now she gets to go off into space and I think meet where Nick Fury is, and she's yay, get Captain Marvel. And meet with Captain Marvel. So I was really happy. I loved her character in this, like her, like again, her acting, and I loved her as this actress as well. But yeah, her acting and then her introduction, her character and her powers and everything like that was just like really cool. And I loved her, like, you know, her stance and authority. She was not feeling, I forgot his name. She was not feeling the guy that was ahead of everything. She was like really just like, so you tell me no, I'm gonna go down the street and do my own thing anyway. So yeah, because I know what's right and wrong, because I know what I'm doing. So
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. But I was so happy to get a nice backstory for her, and it was like really awesome. And I'm really excited to see like her development as she gets into Captain Marvel and everything like that. It was like really dope. So
yeah. That was really cool. And I did like that they're going to be bringing her into, like you said, the Captain Marvel movie phase, which actually at this point, I could care less about seeing Captain Marvel anymore, because I saw that movie, and I'm sorry for everybody if you liked Captain Marvel. I didn't need it. I really didn't need it. They should have brought that Captain Marvel movie earlier on, and then I would have probably cared more. But it was just like, okay, this stuff happens, and then that's probably why another reason why I'm kind of suspect of the Scarlet Witch movie, not Scarlet Witch, Black Widow. I'm tripping. Black Widow movie that's coming out, and it's just like, well, a part of me wants to be excited, but also at this point, like, she's dead. I don't care anymore. I mean, I'm sorry. I'm just being real. Who cares? It's like, what is there to really showcase? I mean, moving forward, something that happened so long ago, and it's still just kind of weird that she just has this American accent, and her sister is speaking in Russian, or like it has a Russian accent, and I don't know. It's interesting. I mean, I would have been way more excited if the Black Widow movie came out like right after the first Avengers. Like, that would have been cool. But I don't know. That's just me. Y'all have any thoughts on that? I don't know.
I mean, yeah, I agree with you. I mean, I'm excited. I'm always excited to see where they're going with everything, because it's always kind of throws you for a curve. But I do agree with the Black Widow thing, especially that it's been delayed now for over a year. I think the more I get closer to it, the more I kind of, like, I'm excited that she's finally getting her own film. Cool. But this should have came out years ago. They should have not waited 20-something movies after,
make her.
Yeah, and then have a movie where she literally gets thrown off a cliff to summon the Soul Stone. We know what happens to her, unless they're going to pull a retcon, which is a very Marvel thing to do, to just go, oh, by the way, yeah, she's not actually dead. She came back. Sorry. And I kind of don't want that to happen, because I feel like Marvel does that to please the fans, which is all totally understandable. Whatever, they're the ones that pay the movie price. Whatever, I totally get it. But by doing so, you kind of mess up the idea and the concept of what these characters represented at a certain point. In the context of where they're going and what happened, we know what's going to happen to her. And I think that, coming back to what you said about Captain Marvel, unfortunately, what I feel about that is that they took this movie and put it in the 90s, and nothing really about the movie tells you it's in the 90s, besides that she's wearing a Nirvana shirt and Blockbuster. And that's literally it. After that,
and Nick Fury has both his eyes.
And he has both his eyes, and that's basically it. And they gave the most lame version of how he loses his eye. And I'm like, oh, it's the cat. Okay.
Well, a flirkin. It's a flirkin. It's not a cat. It's not a cat. It's not a regular cat. It's not a regular cat. It is a being. It is not a cat. It's a flirkin.
It was bitchy like a cat, though, and it would just scratch its eye like a cat would. So, a cat. I mean, it's like you can count. We had asterisk. It's really an alien. It's like, all aliens.
No,
cats are aliens anyway. They're weird.
Yeah, but that's kind of the same thing. It's like, and then I feel like the Russo brothers tried to give us this whole like reason why we should care about Captain Marvel, which she was cool in that movie, but once again, it just kind of was like, we know she's strong, we know she's super powerful, but then you see Wanda and she almost kicks Thanos' ass in like 2 seconds, and you're like, oh, okay. And then, we're just gonna take that away. I'm just gonna push that aside. Just get rid of that. And I'm like,
They tried to like, again, they realized they kind of screwed up on their female characters and not giving them their due. And then they tried to backtrack. And I was like, I appreciate it, but just do better moving forward. Let's just move forward. There's a lot of other female characters. Clearly, you indicated that in Endgame when you had them come together at the end. You indicated, and I forgot the name of that. That's an extra separate comic book series where all the female characters of Marvel are a team. I forgot the name of it. But yeah, so that's an actual comic. So you hinted at it. So now just move forward and just do better and like give the female characters their individual movies going ahead, you know, because I feel like that's where they missed. Captain Marvel should have been in there way back. Widow should have been, like you said, it should have been smack dab after the first Avengers or something. Like it should have been, she should have had her own. And so Wanda's definitely could have had her own. But like I said, I know I'm not a producer or anything like that, but I just think now going forward, just give more of the female characters their solo movies that are needed and you'll be good. Like, but yeah, with Black Widow, I'm like, I'm going to watch it because I have the streaming services and I can do it, but I'm not that excited.
It's gonna be in theaters. I don't think they're gonna put it on Disney.
It's gonna be on Disney Plus. It's on. It's
gonna be on Disney Plus.
Yeah, you have to pay $30 for it though. But
I heard they weren't gonna have it on Disney because they were trying to get money. Like, nah, screw that. You going to the theaters?
They're still gonna do both. Yeah, they're gonna charge you more. They're gonna charge you an extra $30 on top of what you pay for your subscription. To watch Black Widow if you want to watch it.
So it's like you have to buy it. You gotta buy it, even though you have Disney Plus. It's like buying the movie so you can have it. Like you have iTunes, but you still gotta buy movies to add to your iTunes that are new releases. So,
I ain't doing that. No, okay. I probably
just find somebody. It'll be streamable.
Or I might have to do like some of my friends say. I might have to ski mask it. Have to do some nefarious things to watch this movie. I don't know. We'll see.
Just have a watch party and then do like the old pay-per-view thing where people would charge each other for come over to watch the fight.
$5 a pop.
Hey, I pay that. That's about it makes about sense.
$5. That's a Tuesday at AMC.
Does Captain Marvel have a weakness? Or is her weakness male privilege or toxic masculinity? Is that her weakness?
That's everybody's weakness, but
no. It's true.
It's true. Amongst everything. That's at the bottom, but what's her weakness? Sorry.
I don't know.
I'm trying to think. I'm like,
I don't know either. I'm trying to think too.
I studied her for a while because there used to be the show called The Avengers: Earth's Mightiest Hero, which is a really great Avengers TV cartoon. It's actually on Disney Plus. I highly recommend it. It's really, really good. And she shows up in the second season, and I can't remember. There's not really. Honestly, I don't really think there is much that can really stop her besides cosmic entities. So, because she's pretty much Superwoman, plain and simple, in the Marvel universe. Because even like, I know I'm going off in a direction here, but like there's also Miss Marvel, Captain Marvel, so on and so forth. So there's so many variations of the character and how the character kind of is there. But I think that's what the problem with the film is, that she doesn't have a weakness, really. And that I've always felt this even with Superman, Thor, or whatever. If you make a character too powerful, the audience will not connect with them whatsoever. Because there's no way of stopping this person, it's one of those things that you try to find something to stop them, but there's nothing to stop them. And in theory, that sounds really, really dope. But it's not, because as audience members, we want to see their weakness. We want to see what faults they have and how that character can grow from it and, evolve and know that there is something that the villain can use against them. And like you said, the male toxicity with Jude Law's character, specifically with her, which is always mostly just breaking her down. I feel in the context of the film, is always kind of putting her down, and that's what she has to kind of get over, is that he constantly tells her that she can't do this and can't do that, that there's no way she'll ever achieve this, and that she needs to be better than he was, but not at the same time. So I don't know. It's really hard to explain it, how to like break that down, especially in the overall comic book universe. I'm sure someone out there on the internet knows more about the specifics of that, but
because at least like Superman has like kryptonite. I mean, that's it. Like, I don't know what she has. She just out here just living free. Like, whatever. I'll do what because clearly, she didn't even show up to when there was an issue. She's like, I'm protecting everybody else. Screw Earth. I have no. oh, Earth exists. Oh yeah, I forgot. Yeah, I think I have. What the hurt? I mean, I guess I'll show up and headbutt Thanos or something. And I don't know. We have the gratuitous slow motion, all women walking which was cool, but it was just like, are they gonna do anything? Nah. just go back to Captain America and Thor.
I hope they do. I hope
and
they
Hulk
do.
is over there just like this. Get him. And it's like, oh, come on, man. Like, you gonna mess up his hand. So he's not even gonna get payback on Thanos, but that's a whole nother conversation. Like, man, I wanted payback. I wanted at least smart Hulk with Hulk's powers, now to where it's just like, okay, maybe he knows some kind of martial art or something. Maybe he does judo. I don't know, but he uses his brains to have a better fight with Thanos. He still doesn't beat Thanos, but it's like, hey, I'm some kind of payback. I got a few punches in, at least. But nah. Anyway, yeah. So Falcon and Winter Soldier. What were y'all thoughts on that?
Oh man. So I really enjoyed Falcon and Winter Soldier. Not as much as I did WandaVision, but I did like it. And I feel the only reason why I say that is because I don't feel like it stuck the landing very well. And I don't know what it is exactly what it was. Because the ending felt to me very Lord of the Rings Return of the King-ish, where it's like, there's an ending. Oh, here's another ending. Here's another ending. And I'm like, okay, but what was the overall point of this? Like, Sam ends up being the person that explains what the villains are trying to do the whole time, which, don't get me wrong, is really great. And then great that, that he's Captain America now, which, I mean, we saw at the end of Endgame that he got the shield. And I was like, sweet, we're going to have Captain America now. But that idea and the concept of the character kind of going through this idea that he doesn't feel that he, because of probably out of racism or out of how the world will see him as Captain America, because it is now a black man as Cap and not a blonde-haired, blue-eyed white man we've seen since the 40s, since World War II. And so the idea and the concept is the world ready for that? And his constantly breaking that down in his head and dealing with that, and the idea is that he can live up to Steve, and he'll never be Steve. Is just a great concept for a show. But then you go into, once again, and I kind of feel this is where they dropped the ball a little bit. They try to introduce these red herrings and these villains that kind of don't really go anywhere. They introduce, John Walker, which. John Walker can go to hell, in my opinion. In all intents and purposes of that. As the first moment I saw him at the end of that first episode, and he's wearing he's U.S. agent to me. He was never Captain America whatsoever. And right off the bat, I saw him I'm like, that's U.S. agent. I don't care. I hate this guy. I'm done. Which was a great performance by Wyatt Russell. The Russells are great actors, so they know how to knock it out of the park.
Because you hate them.
Yeah, I hated them so much, and I was like, dude, you are the worst. So and it's just great ideas, great concepts, and the whole throwing the curveball of who the actual power broker was, and I feel like that reveal was very disappointing because it kind of just happens. They're like, oh, so you're the power broker, and I'm like, that's it. that's as far we're gonna go with that. All right. And the moment in episode 4 was it, where John kills that guy in the streets? That's the exact moment, which represents a lot of what happened with police brutality and the eventual outcome of that. That should have been way bigger. To me, that moment left me completely shocked. I was just frozen, and I couldn't believe what the hell I just saw. That Marvel literally killed somebody in the street with the shield.
With the U.S. flag.
With the flag, essentially. A foreigner in some other country in front of everybody. And it's just this moment that stuck with me. And I'm like, yo, this is going to change everything. And the next episode, it's like, yeah, we're just kind of, they're going to be a big fight and they're going to fire him and that's it. And I'm like, that's all we're going to get out of that? And what's also weird, what's also really strange, Sam's nephews play with a murder weapon.
Oh, yeah, they do. After the fact, they do. Don't they?
They're literally touching the shield. They're playing with it. So there's stuff like that where the continuity of it is just weird. And I really enjoyed Anthony Mackie's performance and Sebastian Stan. That scene of him in Wakanda was outstanding. John Walker, Wyatt Russell was great. It's just something about that ending just kind of felt disappointing. I don't know. And Isaiah was great too. The guy played Isaiah. And I want that explored. And I think the concept of show, don't tell kind of plays in this a lot. They should have shown more of what was actually happening rather than just tell us.
Yeah, they were talking a lot.
Yeah.
And they were doing a lot of talking.
There's a lot of exposition, and I think that's what, for me, I as a viewer, why I liked WandaVision more, because they would show you what she was going through. In this case, they would just tell you what they were going through. And I was like, well, if we had seen Isaiah actually, deal with being experimented on, which is a metaphor for the Tuskegee experiments, holy hell, like that would have been great. I would have loved to see that adaptation. The Red, White, and Black comic, which is a fantastic graphic novel. If you've never read it, it is outstanding, and it's just so good. It's just something you should really pick up. And I felt that's something that they should have stepped into, especially going forward. And I'm like, that should have been included because that is a big point of what's happening in the storyline. But anyway, sorry.
I hope like things like that, when you bring up stuff like that, I hope that because they are witnessing great experiences with these mini series that are on Disney Plus, that maybe we will start to get more in depth of these stories. I'm hoping, because now Marvel's just like, okay, we have these series, people are loving them. So this is a way for us to introduce more story, things like what you're talking about, like what is it, the Red, White, and Black comic series, like stuff like that. Like we can introduce these things that we might not be able to do on a larger scale in the whole universe, but now we can give you all this content in these series. So I'm hoping Marvel now sees the benefit of series like these, and now, I know Loki is about to be amazing, can't wait. And I hope Marvel sees the benefit of these series, and now it's just like, okay, we can give some more really in-depth stuff that we haven't been able to touch because it's so much, and now we can bring it out there. Because again, I get it. They didn't know how this was gonna go. Like they didn't think Wanda. You never know if it's gonna hit out the park or not with these series. Because here it is. Up until now, you're used to Marvel Cinematic Universe as opposed to Marvel mini show series, and so this was their first dive into it. And so I think they're kind of just like they dip their feet in, and now they're like, okay, we're good. Let's go ahead and submerge. And I hope they do, because I would love to see comics like that come out on the series, like a Red, White, and Black comic book miniseries on Disney Plus. Hello, so Disney, if you're listening, can we Disney, Marvel, can we get it happen? Let's get it cracking. We need to do this.
And
I'd be all in for that.
Yeah, I know, right? I agree. It's funny you mentioned that, because I hadn't really talked about that, but there was something I thought about, Mike, when you said that they should have shown at least a little snippet of what I said. Because if they'd have shown that, it'd have been so powerful.
That would have not been.
Which that was nice with them sitting down and them talking, but I was just like, transition, take me to that moment, because we can talk about, like, for instance, we can talk about racism all day till our faces we're blue in the face. But until people actually see it, either you go to a museum and you see what happened and you hear, so that way you're transported back into that time, it becomes more real, instead of like, oh, I hear about it, but I didn't know that this, oh wow, they went through all of that, or whatever group, that's gone through a huge travesty throughout history. It's one thing to talk about it, but when you see it, that speaks way more than words can ever say. That speaks volumes more. So I was in the thing, I was waiting for that moment. Like, just take me. Like, can I see a younger, or are they gonna de-age him? Are they gonna de-age the guy playing Isaiah? That'd be kind of, he's already kind of big. So I was like, maybe they can have him go and replay that scene, but they never did it. And I was just like, well, you just lost a moment, especially when they first met Isaiah and he told him to get out and whatever. All right. And then they walked outside, and that was a really heavy moment, because Sam was arguing about, like, why didn't I know about this? Why didn't I? And then they immediately, which was interesting writing. Because I guess that is kind of real, like police pull up and, hey, what are you doing? You got some ID, all this stuff, which I do appreciate them addressing that. But I was also thinking, like, let that moment breathe. Like, we can get into the police coming up and, harassing a black man just for being black, whatever. But let that moment breathe. That's a huge revelation. That's a huge moment that really shakes not only Sam but everybody watching to the core. Like, wait, there was a black Captain America. Whoa, hey, hold on, let's talk more about this. And then they just kind of moved on.
It's interesting you say that because Marvel has this. I want to say they're notorious for doing this, but they're kind of notorious for doing this. But they'll do that. They'll give you this big moment. There's something that should be really deep and impactful, and then the next second, oh, there's a joke, or just something that completely ruins that idea and the concept of what you just saw. Once again, like the whole scene, that should have been a moment where they should have been realizing what they were just told, even though Bucky knows about this. And he's known about this, and he just kept that a secret from Sam, you know, and up until that moment where that should have been more of like, why did you keep that from me? Why did you, out of this whole thing, why didn't you tell me there was a black Captain America already in World War II when Steve was frozen? And there was a whole story there. You knew about this. You didn't tell me about it? Or you didn't tell Steve about it? Like it's a secret that should be explored more, and ideas of that these characters should expand who they are and why they're keeping these things. Which then plays into Bucky because he has a lot of secrets that he has to now keep to himself. Right. That Sam doesn't know. You know, he was the Winter Soldier for years. And so he has killing everybody, John Wick style, you know. So he's out there just murdering people, including the Starks. You know, and he has these deep pains, and that's something that should have been explored a little more. And I think them trying to dive into the buddy cop comedy-esque like banter, I think kind of ruins that concept because then they moved right into systemic racism in a blink. They're like, oh well, you know, there's there's Captain America. Well, whatever. Black Captain America, we don't need about that. Oh, there's a black man yelling at a white dude in the middle of the street. Let's move to that. And I'm like, I get that the ideas of those things are there, but I agree. They need to let things breathe a little bit and let us kind of go, holy crap, that actually happened. You know,
and then after that, they moved into like Bucky ends up getting arrested, which that was a good twist, and it kind of makes sense. It's like, dude, you just left. Like you got therapy sessions, and aren't you supposed to be doing stuff? But you know, anyway, so then they go into the hurry up and emergency therapy session just so you won't go to jail. And then Sam, you too. And like, what? I didn't do. Yeah, come on, you too. And it's just like, what is Sam? I'm like, what does he have to even do with any of that? I mean, which I guess I can see from the therapist's point of view, like this is probably the closest thing to a friend that Bucky has or whatever. But they didn't even talk about that. It was just like, what's going on with you guys? As if she's like the police chief, and then going back to what you're saying with the buddy comedy. And I was just like, thinking, like, what is happening here? Like, I'm so confused. And then it was like a forced comedy where it's like,
and I think they could have. And
it's like
they could have kept that in there. And it wasn't saying I don't want to get rid of it because we got it from them in Civil War, which we enjoyed when Bucky and Sam meet each other, and they have those like quick little one-liners at each other. And you get the hint of the comedy. They could have kept that in there, but they were just, like you said, there were moments, like Mike said, there was those moments if you had let them breathe, and if you had inserted some of this other stuff, then it would have balanced out the buddy cop stuff. Like I would have felt like if they would have like in that moment shown Isaiah, being experimented on, then they come outside and they have that conversation. Then the police come in, and then yes, give me a beat to understand that they are still learning each other and they kind of bump heads. And then I'll like those lighter moments will come in and they'll be well balanced. Cause then I thought if we would have seen those experimentations, then Bucky apologizing to Sam, which was impactful for me. Like, I thought that was great. Like him actually apologizing again, not realizing that I see you as a friend, but I also see you. I also have to know that you are a Black person, a Black man in America, and understand that comes with things. And I'm sorry I didn't realize that. Like, because great, I see you as a human being, but I still have to understand the struggles that you deal with every day as a friend. And I thought that was big and impactful. But then again, it could have just like there could have been so many things that just like solidified and galvanized some really strong stuff if they had just added little bits here and there. Like it just would have made everything just like come together like wholly, and it would have been like, I think it would have hit home really heavy for me, much heavier than it did.
And coming back to Isaiah, I remember I was talking to John randomly like a few weeks ago, and we were talking about like theories and concepts of what was going to happen next. And I brought up Isaiah, and he was like, "Oh wait, I forgot about him." And I was like, that's really bad that Marvel literally dropped the ball on probably one of the most important characters of this whole little miniseries that they've created. And you forget that character's there. And I'm like, that should not have been a thing. That should have been emphasized more, especially because by the time this show ends, Sam becomes Captain America. He is, the new Cap. Which which was fantastic that they did that in the first place, and the idea that should have been more emphasized a little more about that struggle about how a black man can be Captain America, and that there was a Captain America that was black at a certain point, but ends up in jail, and that idea and those concepts should have been included a little bit more, even if it's just a tiny snippet. Do it like how they did with the X-Men movies, where they would throw in like a snippet of Wolverine's backstory, and we got it just fine, and it would have been worked out just perfectly. And exactly that same image right there. That would have been great to just see him just like that, just in a snippet of just holding the shield.
Some moment of him being in this, in this whole era. And I get it with the miniseries, which again, there's that like good and bad with introducing these like amazing series and spinoffs in the miniseries. Is how much can you get in there? But then I'm just like, but there's a way to do it. And as you as a director and a writer, I'm sure you know better than like we could know, like as a viewer, like how they could have just like, I get you only got a certain amount of time, but you could have gave me 15 seconds, 20 seconds here of this. And it just would have been, and the actor that played him, like, I feel like it was just missed because he was amazing. Like every time he spoke, it was just like, my heart was like stopped every time he was on the scene. Every scene with him, just like, you were just like glued to the screen because he was such a great actor. He did it so well. And you could have just like, really just like, hammered that last nail in with something like this, and it would have been like, oh my god, it would have been great.
He's been in the game for a while anyway. He's been acting for a long time. So this dude, he's dope.
He's been around, and he's still pretty. He's still pretty. I was like, whoa, he's still pretty talking. I don't think he looks that old. He doesn't look that old. They really aged him. He still looks good. Black no crap. He still looks good. But he's pretty big and buff, and like they got the perfect guy to play it. So I don't know, maybe Marvel will do something. I hope they would do something with him and like have a series of like what happened to him. But like, again, will they touch that? Like the whole Exhibit Tuskegee experiment, the experimenting on people of color and things like that. Will they dive into that and like really like be like, address it? Like it's there in the comics. It's there.
What would be smart on Marvel's end if they did this? Because this image, like if you can cast a younger version of Isaiah Bradley. I have both of them be in the series, and he's going through like maybe and with his grandson now, going through living life and all this stuff. But you said what, nephew?
I think it's nephew, I believe. Yeah.
Oh, okay. His nephew, or maybe he's going to therapy himself and talking. So maybe he's sitting in therapy talking about whatever, and then flashback. Now you see the flashbacks to him being Captain America, or maybe a person from the newspaper just like, hey, we saw this thing in the museum. I want to know your story. We want to put the story out there, so because now it's in a museum, it needs to be out there. Tell us your story. And he sits down, kind of like I forgot the movie where Jane Pittman. I think something years of Jane Pittman, where she was sitting there giving her story to the person that was recording for the newspaper, and then you got to see her path through life of all the stuff she went through, racism and all that. And this very powerful and very strong. I think they can do the same thing here, which would be amazing. Great. Yeah, we know there's going to be a sad ending. And just imagine when he was talking about with his wife, like how powerful it would be if you see the wife wanting to see him and they said, no, he's dead. He already died. And he's on the other side, just looking at a picture of his wife or whatever, or thinking about his wife. That would be amazing. That'd be must-see TV.
No, very like almost like a movie, very Interview with the Vampire-ish, when Brad Pitt sits down with Kristen Slater and goes through his whole life. Like very much that's like that. You could even do a movie like that, or I mean, you could do a series. But if you want, go ahead and do a movie and put it on Netflix, on Disney Plus, like, or a series like that where he just sits down. But I really hope they touch on that because, like, again. And this is very interesting which again, these miniseries are bringing up this fact because, like, again, a lot of people did not know that. Like, I was on Threads and I was looking online and they were talking about it. And people were just like, wait, this is for, and people are like, comic people are like, yeah, this is a thing that happened in the comic books. It's there. And the fact that no one knew about this, people are just like, why are they just now telling us about this? And it's like, yeah, it's a lot, but I mean, I think again, I hope they capitalize on this Disney Plus thing and really take it.
Well, I mean, which I think what they're going to try to do, and I have a feeling this might happen because knowing how Marvel has been doing things, and I'm a huge nerd, so I kind of piece these things together. So because his nephew in the comics, Isaiah's nephew, becomes the Patriot for the Young Avengers. And I feel what they're going to do, because they've already introduced Wanda's kids, and those two are Young Avengers. And he is a Young Avenger. And Hawkeye's daughter, which is a coming show for Hawkeye, is a Young Avenger. And I forget who the other one is, a Hulk-type character. But those characters are in there. And they've already been introduced. And I'm pretty sure this is where they're going to go with it. And this is where the concept of where they're going with Marvel. Because if they do introduce the Patriot, they might do a flashback of his uncle telling him about what had happened. But I really want them to do it. I would love for them to do just an Isaiah Bradley story. Like, that's by itself. Like, we know what it will be one of those moments where we know where the character happens, but we kind of want to see what happens to the character. Even though we already know what happens to him later down the road. Or even if they did like in a Saving Private Ryan style, where they start off with the statue and him looking at it and going back, and you just see this whole story play out up until that moment again. It'd be exactly. That's me.
That is every nerd conversation to a T right there. Every time that is it.
I will say no. He is right though. I do believe that's happening. I just wanted to mess with him. Sorry. Go ahead, Mike.
But that's true. No, that's facts. We are connecting the dots after the story. We're having like 45-minute conversations with ourselves. Like, wait, and they could do that. We do it it's nerds. We're nerds.
It's true. Yeah, it happens.
It's what we do.
But no, they're supposed to have the She-Hulk show coming out soon too. I mean, she's not a part of the Young Avengers though, right?
No, she's not. She's just her own thing. She's just Bruce Banner's cousin. But I'm happy that she's getting her own show. But weirdly enough, that's the thing. They're cranking out so many shows, which I'm thankful for. But it's also a lot of obscure characters that people don't know, and I think that's the only way these people most audiences are gonna like accept these characters. Because if you put them in a movie, they're going to become a side character. You're never going to see them. You're going to get so little of them. Like I said, She-Hulk, Moon Knight, which I'm excited for because he's basically Batman in the Marvel universe. A little psycho, but he's played by Oscar Isaac, which is one of my favorite actors right now.
Yeah.
They got that. They got Armored Wars coming out, Secret Invasion coming out. And it's just all these shows that I'm like, yo. And I told a friend of mine that once they go cosmic, it's going to get weird. And then they went cosmic, and it's getting weird. And it's getting weird really quickly, We kind
of knew it was going to go cosmic. We knew it was. Like, even Captain Marvel. I mean, when we see Nick Fury sitting chilling on a spaceship in the middle of we don't know where at the end of Captain Marvel, I was like, oh, it's going to get weird soon because we're going to head out to space. We're going out into the universe, and it's gonna get really weird. And I was like, I'm excited for it because I'm like, I'm excited because I love, like I said, I love the series they built, but I just got tired of seeing the same characters, and I was just like, I need the world to expand, and so that way maybe it doesn't mean that you have to connect with this set of characters, but then you could like your wife, she connected with Wanda, and then maybe she'll just follow where Wanda goes in the cinematic universe, and then come to Wanda whenever they come back together again, which is great, which is what I feel like is great with these comic books, is because everybody kind of has their own, like, maybe have their own characters and universes that they follow, and then they all eventually come together. And I think that's the great thing about comic books and how they can bring people together and things like that. Is like you find the characters that speak to you, and that's like a beautiful thing for me.
Well, see, I think the first time, I mean, because it could have really gotten weird with Guardians of the Galaxy, but because they got James Gunn, James Gunn knocked it out the ballpark. Even though I wasn't like that crazy about Guardians of the Galaxy, but I liked it. I was just like, this is cool. And then Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 2 came out, and I was just like, I'm definitely on board with these guys. This is a cool group that I otherwise would have never liked, but they got the right director, the right writer to bring that forward. The only time it got weird cosmically for me was when they brought Captain Marvel, and I was just like, what is going on? Like, I don't understand her powers really. why doesn't she have more of a connection with Earth? And the only thing I can kind of, and not even to make fun of it, but it's just like she doesn't like is she like a pessimist? Is she like like, oh, I hate the men there. They're all toxic. And it's just like, so is that why she hasn't come back to Earth? I mean, because I know she kind of like lost her memory, I guess, but then it's just weird. It was just like, hey, let's introduce this character. There's not a lot of info on her. Hey, you like her, right? Yeah, woman power. And it's like, no, that's not how you do woman power. The first Wonder Woman movie that they came out with, that's how you do it. They did a good job with it, even though I know Amari say something. I mean, she has a problem with the casting of, Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman. But outside of that, I think it was a good movie. It was a good movie. Did a good job. Wonder Woman 2, not so much. But, the first Wonder Woman, that was great. That's how you show woman power. Yeah. With Captain Marvel, it was just, and it was so heavy-handed. And, I mean, and also that's where I kind of also, a part of me likes Falcon in the sense of where they did address this stuff, which is good. But then even like the speech at the end that he had, which although it was cool, like him talking, almost like chastising the politicians, but also I felt it was like, it wasn't organic. It was kind of heavy-handed, almost where it's coming across as slightly, not, I don't want to say preachy, but kind of like almost like an after-school special. And it's just like, it's and maybe also it's Anthony Mackie. Maybe I don't know. Maybe I
think if we would have had some of that other content, maybe it would have grounded that moment more. Like we said, like if we had seen the visions of Isaiah being experimented on, if we had had that moment where Bucky and Sam actually had that real like gritty heart to heart conversation about the fact that you don't get it or you didn't get it and you knew So maybe if they would have had those grounding moments, that last speech would have been a little bit more heavier and more cemented, as opposed to a little bit like, I get what you're saying, but it wasn't as impactful as it could have been. And maybe that's without those extra added stuff.
And even touching on what you were saying, like with him and Bucky having that, speech, when they were outside and throwing the shield, that was cool. But I felt like, okay, you're giving it kind of, and maybe it's just me, and I'm cool with that. I'm not gonna say, oh, everybody feels this way, but I felt like it was almost it felt like it was too late to have that conversation in a sense, because everything that came before didn't really make sense leading up to, because I feel like they didn't really have an understanding of what they wanted Sam to be. It was just like, so is he like the guy that cracks jokes? Is he like the Chris Tucker, the Eddie Murphy? To which, honestly, Anthony Mackie can't do that, sadly. I mean, I seen him try, even like because I had the subtitles on when they were going on Zemo's ship, and Zemo said, speaking to his butler in his language, and then it just said, Anthony, like Sam mumbles, and he just walks off, and I was just like, what? I was like, what? You didn't even say a word. You just mumbled, like, because I was sitting there thinking, okay, like, and I was just like, okay, what would happen if you put Eddie Murphy or if you put Chris Tucker in their prime, in that moment? How would they have made that funny? And they would have actually said something, but it probably would have said, like skunk tails or something like that. Whatever he said, and the butler would have kind of, it would have played off better, because you would have had a close up on the butler where he's just like skunk tails or whatever, like something like that. And they were just trying to make Anthony like the comedic guy, but then they flip it to where, oh no, I'm just as aloof and as angry as Bucky is. I don't have anything to say to him. And it's just like, well, which one is it? Are you the guy that's trying to open him up? Because typically the Eddie Murphy or Chris Tucker, that caricature of the comedic relief or whatever, I'm the lighthearted, funny guy. They're the ones that tries to cool the other person's heart, because the other person's heart is like, in 48 hours, Eddie Murphy was working on him the whole movie to where the dude finally opened up. And I thought that's what they were trying to do with Anthony Mackie, but then it seemed like we're going to do that. Well, let's drop that idea. They're both mad at each other. They're both, it's like two opposing magnets. They just don't mesh. And then next thing you know, Anthony Mackie maybe would try again. Hey, I'm Mr. Funny. And it just does, it was just weird. So all of that happening leading up to like their real moment. I was just like, I appreciate this moment, and that within itself was great. But everything leading up to that was just weird. And it was like, why did it take so long to get to this point? Like, that made no sense.
Right. And then there's something that we talked about before where I was talking about the whole, once again, coming back to that Lethal Weapon banter that they were trying to force in the show, which it could work really well. And I thought that's where it was kind of going originally. But the fact that they have two straight characters, the characters that are very aloof and very stern, and, they're about, what they're doing. Once again, like I said, they just butt heads, and it's just then you need that wild card, and the wild card ends up being Zemo, which I felt the show became way more interesting and funnier. And like when Zemo came in, which is the villain and the whole concept, which by the way, he did a great job this time around too. I mean, you get a little bit of him in Civil War, but I think this time he actually shined. And so I think that of him just being this wild card to these two very quiet and stern characters. And eventually, Bucky does loosen up and he becomes a little more cheerful like he was in Captain America Civil War. I mean, First Avenger. And he's just, he's a little more his old self. But I just feel by that point, it was just too late. And especially by that point, we had seen John Walker kill somebody. So I think a lot of that humor and that sense of what had just happened, we kind of felt like that was, I felt like that was out of place. I was watching it, I was just like, episode, 5? It's just, I felt like slammed on the brakes so hard because it becomes a buddy cop movie out of nowhere, but it's almost unwarranted. And this is why I come back to that concept of why I was kind of disappointed, because it had these ideas and these concepts. And to be fair, this was the first one that they made outside of WandaVision, because WandaVision was shot second, and then this was the first one that they made. So I think they were trying to learn about what they were trying to do. And I don't know why exactly they released it after the fact, but that idea that they should have, just have a little more thought about where it was going. And I don't know if that had to deal with the pandemic storyline that they had to cut out, that the Flag Smashers let out a virus and that was going to basically destroy the whole world. And it was, up to them to stop everything. I don't know if that had something to do with it, and I don't know. I just felt the whole buddy cop vibe to it at the end didn't really seem to mesh quite well, which is something I feel they need to work on if they do a second season, or even for Captain America 4 that they're developing. They need to develop that more, because we can't have stern Anthony Mackie and then stern Sebastian Stan, and it's like, they're kind of okay now. He's a little funnier. It's just something that they just need to figure out, and I think it's and I don't know if it, once again, like I said, I don't know if it's Anthony Mackie. He's a good actor. He's done really well, and but I kind of always see him as Papa Doc in my head, and so so I can't get that out of my head sometimes.
But Anthony Mackie, I don't want to put everything because I've been ragging on him for the longest, but
stop.
But I mean,
stop.
But also, there are moments where he does shine, like it works for him, like that. But that falls on the writers. Y'all need to write it to where, okay, this works for him. Like, remember when they first met the Flag Smashers, and he was like, "Man, that little girl kicked your ass," and I was just like, "That's funny. That's good. That's good." So that was nice. And then, which I don't think there was really another good witty part from him until the end, where he went against the Bartrock or Bartrow, or I don't know what the French guy he was fighting, the French villain, and then he said something about bagels and whatever, and croquets or something like that, and I said, okay, that's a little witty, that's cool, that kind of fits you, but all the other stuff, it was just kind of like it seemed forced, like what Mikey's saying, it seemed forced, and also I'm. At first, I was just like, "Oh, that's cool." So they're gonna give Anthony Mackie like a solo Captain America movie. That's cool because he needs it. But then also, I was just sitting there thinking like, well, because they're bringing on I think 2 of the same writers from this show, which they can work and it's fine. It's not that they're not horrible writers, but it's just like, hey man, I hope y'all really learn from, or just at least listen to what people are saying. And please don't do the same thing that y'all did in this show. Don't bring that over to the movie, because there's gonna be some holes and some pacing issues. And certain stuff isn't going to make sense. So, I don't know. I hope it's good.
Yeah. Can I give a?
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I have to give a shout out to the best beat down of the whole movie when the door came through. I have to give props. That was one of the best parts for me. obviously, but like not even that. But it just seemed like it was really well written. It was well done how they brought them in and just everything about them when they stepped on the scene. That whole scene to me when it talked about the comedy and the balance between the serious and the comedy was like perfect because while they're beating the crap out of them, they're just like, you got this job. And it's just like it was the best part. It was like it was really great. And then the seriousness of it, like when she's just like, when she like that whole realization on Bucky's face when she disarmed his arm and like disabled it, and he was just like, and it was like I was like, whoa. I was like, so you thought that they were just gonna trust you with their technology 110%, right?
So
Like
what was
we
given
still
to you
need
can be
to
taken away. Yeah.
there
Yeah.
exactly. It was it was learning moment, and I thought that was a great learning moment for Bucky to be like, hey, get it, make sure you act right. And so that whole scene, that whole scene when they came back in and introducing Wakanda back into this, and that whole aspect was like really great. And I'm happy that they brought back Dora that were like not necessarily Okoye, which is the main leader of the Dora Milaje, but like this her second and other in command. Like that was just like it spoke to just like I love with the female balance in the show because it was just like again he touched her with no provocation and she was like no, like and it was like all of it was like great. Like it was very like when he walks up to her and it's just like he just did the typical let me talk to you, and it was like it was triggering for me because it's like it was the typical like guy move, like let me talk to you little girl, like the way he came up on her, and I was like, oh, thank you. Teach people a lesson.
What you're saying there, like how I saw it, it was like kind of more how cops do it, especially towards minorities. Like they'll come up to us and they'll go, well, what are you doing here, sir? I'm an officer, blah blah blah. And he does the same, almost word for word. Well, I'm Captain America, and I'm like, whoa, hey, dude, like you can't just come up to people just waving your flag in people's faces. You can't do that. Right. And I think that was like kind of that concept of that idea, and that's how I when I saw it, I was like, dude. I'm good, dude. Like you can't, and it's something
you just hated him more.
I just hated him more, and I think that was the concept of why I loved Steve so much. And even at the end, with Sam, but it's just this idea that he just comes up and waving his shield around, like, look, see, I'm Captain America, guys. Like, and it was like respected like it's a badge, and I think that was and that
and then
concept
she took that from him.
Yeah, and she literally takes it from him. She has it in her hand, and I'm like. It can once again, what's given to you can be taken away, and that concept it's played with both Bucky and with John Walker, and I think that was the theme in that sequence was just so good, and that the ideas and the how, and I'm happy that they bring back more of Wakanda back into the series in general. Like, I mean, I know Ryan Coogler's working on a TV series based on just strictly on Wakanda, and Black Panther 2 is coming out, and well, we'll see what's going to happen with that, with Chadwick, RIP. So and
I still think they need to replace him, but whatever.
That's a whole nother life. That's
a whole other chat right there.
That's a whole other chat. Again, it's one of those things.
But okay, so my last question is is Sam going to take the serum? Because he needs to take the serum. Somebody.
So
he needs to go to Isaiah. It's like, hey, what type of blood are you? Oh, you ate it? Me too. I need your blood because I'm.
And I think
I'm dying.
I thought they were going to do more with this, and this is where my theory was at the end of episode 5. Is when he opens that case, very Pulp Fiction style, and you see the light on his face. I was like, oh, Marcellus Wallace's soul's in there. But anyways, so he opens up the case, and you see that moment where he looks down at the Wakandan case, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm like, in my head, I started building all these theories. I'm like, oh, they're gonna give him the Captain America suit. Oh, it's gonna have the technology that the Black Panther suit has, where it's gonna be the kinetic energy. Oh, that's how he's gonna get his superpower. So it doesn't. I'm building this theory in my head. That what is actually happening with the suit, and it just turns out, it's just a really dope superhero suit, and I'm like,
the suit.
And the wings. I'm like, that's it. That's as far as we're gonna go with that. I'm like, in my head, I'm like,
I mean, maybe they're saving it for the movie. I don't know. Maybe they might be saving it for the movie.
I've been keeping my expectation low, because that's what I'm starting to do with Marvel now. Because it's just like the stuff that I want Marvel to do that would be really cool and would expand a lot of the stuff out. They are going at a snail's pace. I mean, like I think there was the idea when Monica was talking about, oh, I know an astrophysicist that can come and help, and blah blah blah, and a lot of people like, oh, snap,
Reed Richards, yeah.
I said the same thing. I was like, Reed.
Because I mean, and you got to think about it. So you had 3 different Fantastic Four movies, and a lot of people, like, none of them were really that, exciting. Well, no, the first one was cool, but then the 2 following that, including that one that's the reboot. So a lot of people weren't really, it's hard to get excited about these properties, 4. Right? 4?
Yeah, there was one made in the '90s that wasn't released technically, but it was made by Roger Corman.
Wow,
not a good movie. I asked him about it, but it's not a really good movie. And then the 2 Tim Story ones, and then the reboot one. Oh man, that reboot one. Whew.
But see, I think that was a missed opportunity, because like you could have introduced Reed Richards, right? I mean, because you already got to introduce 4 characters, and you have to tell the stories of these 4 characters, including a villain. That's a lot to juggle. I mean, not that it can't be done, but that's a lot. Because there's a lot of different story threads, and you got to make you care about all these 5 people, potentially. So I was thinking that'd be great to introduce one of those characters to where, okay, I already have an idea of Reed Richards now. That's dope. Now I got something to look forward to. Now the hype is building for Fantastic Four. Now I'm even more excited to see Fantastic Four, because I already know who's playing Reed Richards. I already know kind of what his personality is like, and I want to know more about him. But they didn't even pull the plug on that. I mean, they didn't even pull the trigger on that. They were just like, oh, it's some random person. Yeah, here you go.
But do they need to at this point? But at this point, do they need to? Like with five, right? We said 5, right? 4 movies. 4 movies have already come out, and we know these characters. We know them as comic book people. But even if you watch any of the 4 that are out, you know these characters. So really, I mean, I get what you're waiting, because I wanted to be Reed Richards. I think the only reason I wanted to be Reed Richards is because I could be like, who's playing him? That's it. That was the only reason why. I know Reed Richards from the comics, from everything else. I know Reed Richards. I kind of know where his personality is going to be. I just want to know who's playing him. Just like, who's the actor? Who is it? Let me know.
The reason why I was saying that was because even from you and Mike, like, y'all don't really need to see Reed, because y'all know about him, and plus even me, like, I've seen the Fantastic Four. I don't really need. I'm talking about for the average audience, like for the audience who don't know anything about what's Fantastic Four. Oh, I remember hearing the movie, but I never saw it. So this is your great opportunity. You have a TV series where you have people watching that typically don't watch, and you can start introducing these characters to where now the average audience member who doesn't really watch Marvel like that, they're like, oh yeah, this person is gonna have a movie, Reed Richards. Yeah, he seemed kind of cool. It was all right. Okay, so now there's that interest there from the audience perspective. So, and you're making it easier for them as a person who doesn't know. I don't know who all these characters are. Now I kind of have an idea, So, and I thought that would have been smart, because this is a perfect vehicle to do that, and you didn't use it.
Yeah, I so wanted that to be Reed Richards. I swear, but.
That brings me back to that concept that I was talking about before. It was like they build up these very big things to end up just being a disappointing reveal. And they do it quite often, and I think that's kind of something they need to work on. And I think they've been doing this for years now, and it's part of that formula, that Marvel formula. And I'm like, and once again, it happened in WandaVision. It happened in what's it called? Pietro, and Pietro and the Reed Richards thing, where they built up this character, or even back to WandaVision, the second cameo at the end of the show that you were expecting, which it just turned out to be just the White Vision. And I'm like, oh, that was the big cameo, huh? I was like, well, that wasn't really that exciting. Like, okay, we knew that they were experimenting on superior vision,
Yeah.
Exactly. So we knew that was coming, but also that wasn't really what you guys kind of hyped us up for. Like, they'll hype you up for the big reveals, or even for what's it called, Falcon and Winter Soldier. You had Val show up, and I know a lot of people are like, who the hell is Val? Like, who is she, and why is she here, and why is Elaine from Seinfeld in the show? Like, where did she come from? And that concept of who that character is. Like, I know who she is. And I was like, oh, cool, they brought her in. Which she was supposed to be introduced in Black Widow, from my understanding. Which I think she probably has a bigger role in that. But we haven't seen that because it got delayed. So we're just sitting here in these moments where we're expecting these bigger things to happen because they've groomed us to be expecting these bigger things to happen now because that's part of their formula. They're like, this big reveal is about to happen. Guess what? Here it is. And here's this big moment. And you're like, oh, fantastic, cool. Let's now keep that going. So as audience members, we're expecting it consistently, and it's, I don't know if it's something that they need to change up that formula a little bit more. Because it's just becoming kind of similar in each series, which kind of worries me about Loki, which I'm excited that it's coming out. Like, each show has its own like trait. WandaVision's about about the breakdown of depression and how that dealing with pain of anguish of that after somebody dies. Falcon and Winter Soldier, for the most part, is about how veterans are treated after the fact when they come back, even though they just saved the world. Literally, in this case, they saved the world, and they come back and they can't even get a bank loan. Kind of, it's like the idea of how they're treated. And then Loki, from the looks of it, looks like it's about personality disorders. So in that context of how that is breaking down, I like where they're going with it. But once again, Loki in that trailer, he's being followed around by a white dude and grooming him in these directions, and I'm like, that's going to be the villain of the show, and that's going to be where the show goes. And I'm calling it now. I hate to say that, but I think that's really who's going to be the villain of the show. And
oh no, okay.
And
all
yeah,
right.
so just
I will remember this day. I will remember it when I'm sitting there. I'll be like, Mike said it.
If he's right, you owe him a drink.
I'm not testing Mike. I know I have a test. I have come to the conclusion Mike knows his stuff. I was like, oh yeah, no. I'm not gonna bet against Mike.
I'm hoping I'm wrong.
I'm not gonna bet against Mike.
See, once the world opens up, Mike's gonna be out. He's gonna be at a bar, and there's gonna be some drunk dude. Hey, you're that guy that was on the real stuff. You talk about movies. I owe you a drink. Like, wait, what? You were right. All right.
Oh, will Owen Wilson be the villain? Okay, well, no, we have a couple more weeks for that, so we'll have to come back and talk about that. We'll have to come back and talk about Loki.
And I was disappointed in Sharon as a power broker, honestly. But some people are saying she's not really the power broker. So
see, and that's exactly my point. That's something that I also have to show. Once again, it's why I feel like they didn't stick the landing, because at the beginning of the show, Sam tells you it's the big three. It could be the big three: aliens, robots, or wizards. In my head, I started going, who else can it be but outside of Zola? Zola has to be that character because he, first of all, is a robot. He has alien technology and probably stepped into the wizard concept of now, because it's been 5 years since, everything kind of broke down in the Marvel universe. He had 5 years to break everything down and actually be this great underworld, villain that we only saw him for like 2 minutes in the first Captain America, and then maybe 2 more minutes in Winter Soldier. And it was one of those things where I was like, yo, that would be a great reveal, because then it throws everyone through that loop of like, hey, remember what happened back then? We're bringing it back. And you play with that memory of people that have been in with Marvel from the beginning, like someone like me who's been there, who's been watching it since the first Iron Man movie, who's dove into this whole thing 15 years later, kind of thing. We're still in this, and that idea that they just kind of were like, oh yeah, it's Sharon. And I hate it because my homie at work, he was just like, yeah, it's gonna be Sharon. And I'm like, yeah, but that seems like a really weak reveal if that's who it is. Then he's like, it's gonna be Sharon. And I'm like,
because I thought they were messing with us, and that's what I was hoping they were, because you saw the little stuff that Sharon was doing, and I was just like, okay, they're kind of making it obvious that she's Sharon, but that's the distraction, right? It's like, hey, I'm gonna show you this, but really, bam, I got you with this. It's really this. But then they actually revealed it was Sharon. I was just like, yo, what the? Yeah. Really? I mean, it is interesting because she's supposed to be a good guy. So why is she really?
Now she's brought back into the fold, and now she's.
I guess it is more of a access. Right. I guess it's more of an interesting direction to go with, because it is a person that's close to them per se, instead of it being a completely new person. So I mean, that's different, but. Also, I was just sitting there thinking, like, I just kind of want to see somebody new. Like, I don't care about Sharon. I never really cared about Sharon. that doesn't really make sense that she would go this far, just to be like, all right, yeah, now I got access back in. Screw America, we're gonna burn them down. It's like, wait, what? It's like,
which is weird to say because you're right. Because after Civil War, it seemed like everyone just got pardoned.
Yeah, except for her. Like, what kind of sense does that make?
Even if going in, they go to hiding after Civil War, and Infinity War happens, but then the government kind of doesn't care what happens because everyone gets blipped, and everyone after the snap happens. I mean, everyone just fades in the dust. But Steve didn't get. No one came after him, and he's at the Avengers compound for 5 years, and nothing happens. And Wanda's there. Actually, Wanda. No, she died, right? So, anyways, the people that were actually, going against the Sokovia Accords, like that whole concept is like they just get pardoned like nothing. But why did? And I get Sharon in that time frame was hiding in, wherever she was in France, Mandapore. Yeah, thank you. Oh. And she's there, but she could easily just came back and be like, "Hey, sorry guys, I joined the wrong team. Can you pardon me too?" I was part of that situation, and that whole concept just gets thrown in the trash. And they're like, "Yeah, forget that she, we're gonna make you remember about Civil War, but then make you forget that she is part of that, and then also make you forget that she kissed her uncle." So that's a whole, other story.
Oh,
what's odd for me? Another thing that was odd for me was like going back to the writing, and that's why I'm kind of concerned about these same writers doing Captain America 4, because you had Bucky who didn't really want to open up to his therapist, even though she's like, "Hey, I'm here to help you," or whatever. If you can't talk to me, it's I gotta write whatever. And I could see, on one hand, I could see Bucky saying, "Okay, I want to." When she asked, "Are you still having nightmares?" I can see him saying like, "Okay, I want to tell her, but if I tell her, that would make me a liability to the government, so I don't want to tell her." So I can see that. But then also with him being so aloof and so whatever, as soon as towards like episode 5, Sam was like, "Let me ask you something. Are you still having nightmares?" And Bucky's just like, "All the time." And it's just like, wait, whoa, now you're open book? Like, everybody had to pull teeth with you. And all of a sudden now you want to talk? And it's so easy to pull this stuff out of you. It's like, man, that's not believable, man. And I even with the whole, and there was a running theme of people asking people to do stuff. Like when Bucky asked Sam, like, "Hey, what if we broke? What if we had Zemo to help us?" "What? No, man, we can't do that. You crazy? We did all this stuff and blah blah blah." And then it's basically like, "All right, but who else we gonna use?" "All right, man. So how do we go about doing this?" Then fast forward into Sam asking Sharon, like, "Sharon, we really need your help. Can you help us find this scientist?" Mm-hmm. And she was just like, "America betrayed me, so no, and plus, how you gonna help me? How you gonna pardon me? Basically, who are you?" And he just like, yeah, you're right. And then he thinks about it. "Okay, how about this? What if I pardon you if you help me?" And it's just like, you just asked the same question. And then she was just like, "Okay, let me see what I can do." Like, wait, what? Like, what? There is little to no. And I was joking with my friend about this, and it's not really funny, but I was just like, that's just like, I mean, if you put that in a situation where a guy is just trying to get something from a girl, that would be the easiest thing ever. It's like, "Hey, come on, girl, come on, let's do it." It's like, no, I ain't really ready to do that yet. He's like, "Okay, look, come on, what about now?" Okay, like not like that was easy. So it was like there was no fight whatsoever. It's just ask twice. Just ask everybody. They say no first, and then just ask them again the same exact question, and they'll be like,
right.
Okay.
And I think that's one of the weaknesses of the show is that concept of there is conflict, but there's not a lot of conflict. Like the conflict that's there doesn't necessarily affect the main characters. Like the reason they're an antagonist is to be at ends with the protagonist. And really, there's never really any really moment that they're at ends with each other. There's no reason that, that Sam is against the power broker. They're just against the power broker because they're funding terrorist groups, air quote, quote unquote, terrorist groups. Which, by the way, I didn't realize until the last episode that the Flag Smashers represented the All Lives Matter people. Up until that last moment, and when them and John Walker are talking to each other, and John literally goes, Lamar's life didn't matter, and this is one of those moments where I was like, oh, how did I not get that this whole time? Like, how did I not understand that the fact that these people want the world to everyone be included because they don't want to feel excluded because all the people that blipped back into reality. But anyway, sorry, besides the point.
Wow.
Tangent.
Oh, wow.
So that the whole concept of that, there's no real conflict there, and that at the end of the show, Sam explains the conflict to the senators and to the government. I'm like, well, that should have been something that should have been explored within the show itself to let us understand the viewpoints of why Sam feels the way he does.
Right.
Because you get this really deep story about him trying to, connect with his family and understand his family and the struggles about being a black man in America and, being not only that, but also a veteran / Avenger. And that the fact that Tony kind of screwed everybody over in the aftermath of this, that there is no health plan, there is no money being involved. Like, if you even look at Spider-Man, he's living in he's the only one that's well off because, Tony treated him like a son. And so Peter's the only one that's kind of well off because happy. But everyone else is just living in a slum and don't know what to do with their lives because there's no point for them to actually be a hero because there's nothing for them to go. And I feel like if that concept would have been dealt with more, and the idea of then how to introduce like John Walker should have been the antagonist, and he is an antagonist, but then that gets taken away. And at that last moment, they try to redeem him and make you like him, which this whole show, they spend you telling you should not like this guy. And there's no reason to like this guy. And at the last moment, they're like, guess what? You like this guy now. And I'm like, no, I don't.
No, I don't.
And then the moment they're like,
what?
You like
what?
You like John Walker at the end?
Because it's kind of, the reason why. This is the reason why. Because he, in a sense, he has to take accountability for the stuff he's chosen. But I thought the scene was great when he was at in the courthouse, right? And they were saying, "Oh, we're taking away this and we're taking away that." And I thought they went too far with taking away your benefits. I was like, "Damn, like you gonna take away the man's benefits? You already stripped him of his titles and all that stuff." I'm like, you gonna just leave him out there with nothing? And like, Sam already can't even get a loan. Then you gonna take this man's benefits away from him? Like, y'all some jerks. And so, but when he was like, I did everything you told me to, and I was just like, you know what? I'm like, he's not wrong there though. I mean, even though he's wrong, but he's not wrong.
He's still wrong. He didn't do everything that they told him to. He started getting all in his own little feelings.
No one told him to take a serum.
Over his career.
Right. No one told him to take a serum and get all roided out.
Hey, but also you got to think about this too. Those politicians aren't. I mean, they were talking about getting, removing these people and not even trying to talk to them, and that's why this whole thing happened, because they weren't even trying to have a conversation. Why Sam had to have this whole PBS announcement at the end, where the after school special and everything. All right, guys. It's basically like it was like Steve, but not as cheesy. You remember when Steve was doing those commercials where he was just like, "Hello, I bet you're sitting here wondering." That was funny, but in this one it was just kind of like, okay, a little bit.
I mean, you didn't like him because immediately when I saw him, I was like, they chose going back to the first Captain America when the reason why Tommy Lee Jones chose Steve over the guy that was the other choice, who was like the military. They literally went like once he gave up the shield, they went and chose the exact opposite of what they needed to choose for Captain America, which was this very again, he's a veteran and he's fought and everything like that, but they weren't looking at him inside. They were looking at him just what he looked like. Yeah. And so it was just like I didn't like his face when I saw him the first time, and I don't like him. Well, granted, taking away his benefit was a lot, but I'm just like, if you get fired from a job, are they still gonna give you benefits?
I mean, after all the stuff he almost died for this country, yeah, he deserves to still have benefits. I mean, I put my life on the line for you, and I could have been doing anything else in the world. I don't have to have a job, but at least give me some benefits or something. Because it's not like, I mean, that person was a terrorist, even though he wasn't the person that killed his friend, so he was wrong for that. It was kind of like
he was an unarmed man.
He was, but I mean, I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying, okay, the reason why I did like John Walker was because he was one of the few that had a story arc. I mean, if you think about it, this was a character that came out as a douche, that finally became redeemable. It's almost like because I kind of liken it to, it's not that close, but almost like Dragon Ball Z for those who are anime heads. But it's like Vegeta, people didn't like boo Vegeta, but then Vegeta got redeemed, and it's just like, actually, no, Vegeta's kind of cool. Now, that being said, do I care about John Walker going forward outside of this series? Nah, I don't care about him going forward. But inside of this show, I was just like, you know what, that's cool, because I was sitting there thinking, like, leading up to episode 6, I was like, man, if you have Bucky and Sam going against the Flag Smashers, and it was like, what, 5 of them or something like that? That's 5 super soldiers, and Bucky act like he just can't tap into who he was before, like he don't know how to fight, and that's one thing I don't like about Bucky. And then so you got Flag Smashers, you got the French villain that was popping back up, so that's like 6 people, and then potentially not my Captain America. You know, it's like, how are they gonna win? And Sam doesn't even have powers. It's just like, how are you gonna win against that? That's impossible odds. You know, so that's why at some point, if they are going to be going against another Thanos level threat, Sam, I mean, you got the shield and you got the wings, but hey, that's not enough. That is not enough to go against. You were struggling against the normal human French villain. He ain't got no powers. He just know how to fight. And it's believable for me to see you go against another potential Thanos level, or maybe even worse than him. No, you better take the serum. So
well, I mean, I think that's the whole point of why he doesn't do it. I think there's a reason why that he doesn't believe that he needs it, because I feel the concept of what he's already learned and the idea that Isaiah has already gone through this, it's not something that he should put himself through. And I think the concept of him not doing so makes him a stronger character. In the long run, he's going to become this much greater Cap than Cap is, you know, than Steve was. And yeah, it might not be worthy to hold the Mjolnir, but you know, he'll at least be, you know, something different and something much more powerful in the end of what's going to happen. And yeah, he might not be able to take down Crane the Conqueror, but you know, he'll put up a hell of a fight. You know, so you know, so I mean, he's definitely going to be there, and he's gonna stand up for what he believes in, and that's just going to be what it is. And I think that's why he's traced through himself. And I think that's why he's going to stay that way in that context of what had happened. Because even in the comics, he has never taken the serum, and he refuses to. And
so is he going to be like running comms? Is he going to be like at headquarters, like, hey guys, all right, this is the strategy, because I'm the leader. I'm over here where it's safe. Because I saw what you did. You know, I'm not doing it.
I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm hoping they maybe do like Mike said, like with that concept of now they realize that he has more of a threat to him because he doesn't have the super serum. Maybe Wakanda helps him out and gets him a suit that helps protect him a little bit more. We never know. Which I'm happy if they were going to do that. They don't do it now. Do it on the big screen. Cool for me. Like maybe, like I said, Mike, I'll look out for that. I'm thinking like when you said that, I was like, oh, that'd be dope. Like if it was an actual suit that would help him take the force of heavy hits and then like Black Panther redistribute it. So maybe we never know. Maybe Wakanda stepped in and helped them out with them wings so they don't get ripped off no more. Maybe Sam's like, hey y'all, I'm not taking the super serum. I need a little bit of help on this. Can y'all help me redefine this suit?
Because T'Challa doesn't have any superpowers. Realistically, he knows how to fight. T'Challa just has the suit. That's basically
the herb.
The fruit gives him extra enhanced strength.
The herb. It does. It's the
that's the
herb.
But going back to Civil War, he didn't have superpowers yet. He didn't develop that yet. That didn't happen until Black Panther. So even that vibranium suit, which I'm pretty sure the suit that Sam wears at the end is partly vibranium. So that's why I kind of, because there's no explanation if there is or not. It's just kind of like, oh well, they gave him a new suit, and it's like cool, but is it made out of vibranium? Because if that's the case, he's bulletproof. You know, there's not. I mean, except for his head, obviously, that's just kind of open there. His mouth and his brain needs to be covered up a little bit, but
it needs to be covered. I don't know. I feel like people in Wakanda might have a little bit extra superhuman stuff because I mean, the Earth is made of like the vibranium is in the Earth in the core where they're at, and then they farm from that Earth. So I feel like they got a little bit of something in them because of that. I don't know. I examined that theory when Black Panther came out because they were like, "Well, does anyone else in Wakanda have superpowers?" I was just like, I don't know. I feel like with vibranium growing in the dirt and the Earth, I feel like you might ingest that if you grow from that Earth, and you never know. But hey, that's
Right.
a whole.
Some sort of
That
cosmic
was
entity.
my
Right.
right.
Well,
that
'cause,
was
yeah, 'cause
my that was my like connecting dots moment when I was like, wait. So
Well, yeah, because there's definitely a cosmic entity there that's causing the vibranium. Well, yeah, the vibranium itself is from space, so
yeah,
that concept
exactly.
of that it can basically radiate the whole ground itself that it's on could affect the people that live there, which then
Yeah.
pushes their technology to greater lengths and actually be way more advanced than anything else on Earth, which is
Right.
which is great in itself, and the concept of that. How that will eventually tie back in with Captain America. I think that the concept of Africa helping America is just this great combination with the center of that Sam is the middle of that. It's just going to merge these worlds together, and I think that's going to push that a little more forward. Granted, it probably might not be in Black Panther 2 because that will take away from possibly Shuri being the next Black Panther.
Right.
So I think
Yeah.
that whole concept of where they're going with that and that idea that this is actually going to be a world united after the fact, which I do think is a great concept that everyone in the end comes together and knows each other and it actually becomes a one unified world as opposed to everyone fighting each other all the time because we got to realize that the Earth is vulnerable now and we only have these handful of heroes to protect it at any given moment. And moving forward, I think that's where it needs to be.
Yeah.
What they should do is let Killmonger go because I think he's like locked up underneath the Wakandan prison. It's like, hey, look, T'Challa's sick. We need you to take over for a little bit, and then you see Shuri. This isn't gonna happen. I'm just saying it'd be interesting. and then just let me have this here. And then Shuri ends up being like, you know what? No, she was like, well, I'm not ready yet, and I don't deserve to be the Black Panther. And then she finally fights to become the Black Panther. And even though you're kind of recycling the same villain, so I don't know. I just like to see an actual transition. I don't mind Shuri being Black Panther. Just recast T'Challa and have that person have John David Washington be T'Challa and have him pass on the mantle to like, okay, Shuri, I'm giving this to you. I'm gonna go do something else. Me and Storm are gonna rendezvous and over here somewhere.
No.
Hater, you hate black love. What's wrong?
No, I was just saying don't because then you take no, like don't give me Storm and then she just goes off and she's gone because she going to like that yeah. You introduce Storm literally to be like I'm gonna go off with my boo. No, I want Storm to come in and wreck and shop because Storm is powerful. So no,
she's going on vacation. Like the child taking a break.
But I need her to be introduced first in her own glory before she decides to go on vacation with her man. Please, I just need her to come in, wreck and shop. But no, I don't envy. I definitely, I don't. Ryan Coogler just has a tough job. Like when that all happened, Ryan Coogler as a writer, and I Mike, and I'm sure as a writer you could probably attest to this. Like having to write something and figure out how to balance not only the comic book, but now the person who has embodied this character and passing away and it meaning like the meaning between that, like trying to bridge that and trying to like still write this movie to go on. Like that's gotta be so difficult. And I trust him and I trust him that he'll like do well. But like I said, as a writer, Mike, I'm sure you can attest, that's gotta be tough. That's gotta be really heavy and like so hard to figure out how to do, but they're trusting him with it. So I
mean, I'm happy that he's still going to go for it, because there's certain directors that would have just given that up and just moved on. And he's such a strong director and writer. I respect him so much that that the fact that he has to take this upon himself to do, I guess now the unthinkable, to replace someone that became iconic realistically from the first moment you saw him in Civil War to his own movie. That he wasn't this character that was just building up to become this character. No, he was already a king and he was this strong character, and that you have to restart all over. And, we established who this person was. And, the future of that, it's a weird gray area. And this kind of leads me into this whole concept of where Marvel is going about that. The fact that they've now stepped into this much darker reality, but also at the same time, the weird reality, and trying to go forward and how they're going to manage all this and what the real plan is for phase, what are we, 4? And what the real plan is for this, because phase 4 seems very, not necessarily chaotic, but it seems kind of all over the place right now. And I don't know if that's part of what it's supposed to feel like, especially post blip kind of situation with, and I felt this way starting with Far From Home, that it just seems like everything literally should have ended with Endgame. And I think that was the problem, is that now we have this whole expanded universe now that we need to fill, not only because, they want to make money, but also because, the comic book fans and, respecting all the comic books that come out and yada, yada, yada. But the idea of where these pieces are falling into play now is how we're going to look at it. And how does this affect the overall outcome, and how eventually, well, it's like I said, directors and writers, and how they have to play with these facts, and how the concept of balancing a concept of real world tragedy with a comic book, and then dealing with the fact that we have to deal with all these superhero characters and ideas of how what they're going to represent and how they're going to represent to us. And moving forward, I don't know where exactly they're going, because before this, and I can only give you like a vague plot idea where I think it's going, because they're of all the films that they're releasing and TV shows. But even then, half of those shows, we don't even know what the plot is. They're just like, well, this takes place before the blip, during the 5 years, maybe before this, maybe before that. And I'm like, which is great for a comic book, but for a film, it's a little harder to get your head around that, because you're thinking about, if you were to watch all of this in chronological order, where are these things going to fall in play? Like, where are things going to connect, and how they're going to connect to this? Will that disrupt the continuity for this down the road? And that idea in the context of how we're going to watch it. And now, like I said, we were watching on these miniseries now on our TVs, and again, these ideas and these stories more connected with us, and how that eventually will play in to other sequels and whatnot. And it's inevitable to have sequels, especially for something like this, especially like even Black Panther. They announced a trilogy after the movie had come out. So, and I'm pretty sure they expected, Chadwick to be in all three of those movies. And I'm pretty sure they had bigger plans for Chadwick in between, between Infinity War and Endgame, and him coming up post blip, and how that's supposed to affect Wakanda, and how Wakanda had changed in that time frame, and so it's a lot of pieces that have to be now filled that we can't get because Chadwick unfortunately passed away last year.
Yeah, because I think he might have been like the new leader post Tony and Steve. I mean, I'm not sure about that, but that's maybe like what I heard or what it was seeming like, because it was just like, well, I mean, if Tony and Steve are both gone, who else is going to step up? And also Black Widow, because she was like a kind of leader during the Endgame, which was kind of weird. But then it was just like, okay, well, once he comes back, he is, one of the strongest Avengers at that point. And, he's very wise. He's a king, so in this sense, and that would have been a great story on like, who is your loyalty to? Like, that could have been a story like to Wakanda or to the world. And it's just like, I have to save the world. But I mean, I can rule Wakanda. Don't make me choose, guys. It's like one of those things. So
I think it was a lot. I think everything like Chadwick passing, COVID, it's kind of like, because I remember being at Comic-Con that last time when they revealed the timeline before COVID, that last Comic-Con when they revealed the timeline and the dates. And I had to go back and look at it, and I was like, wow, like it's all thrown off, because those original dates that they set out with at Comic-Con the year before COVID are totally different now. And it's like, it's just so much. And then now you have Chadwick Boseman passing as well. And so it's just a lot that they have to like rework and piece together. But like I said, from here on out, I kind of I trust Ryan. I trust Kevin. They've done pretty good so far. So I'm like, just looking forward to seeing how they're going to do it and trusting how they're moving forward. Because I had to look at that, and that was when they revealed Blade and stuff like that. That was awesome. But that Comic-Con was amazing. But yeah, so like I saw that, and I was like looking at the timeline, and like you were saying, Winter Soldier and Falcon wasn't supposed to come out till it was supposed to come out at different dates, and now they've moved it all around. It's all had to shift. So it's not we're at that point where we're leading to this chaotic kind of like, how are we going to put this together? And it may be coming out like in some of the things that we've been talking about now, but for the most part, they're still pretty solid. They're pretty solid for the most part. There's of course those holes and things like that we've talked about, but they're doing pretty well and they're pretty solid. And like I said, all we can do is wait to see, as the world opens back up, how they're what in productions continue, how they're gonna piece this together. Because like I said, I think they're doing Doctor Strange in the multiverse now. Because I think someone said they saw the twins. A friend of mine sent me a thing. They saw the twins from WandaVision on set at the in the Doctor Strange. So it's a lot, but I think I don't know. I have some faith. I have some faith. They've done pretty good. I have faith. All I can do is have faith and wait and see what happens, and go on from here. You know. So hopefully, fingers crossed.
Yeah, I agree.
Everything pans out well.
I mean, yeah, and that's another whole topic we should one day get back to. We should talk about the multiverse because we can talk about hours about what's about to happen when Spider-Man gets introduced. When Spider-Man introduces the multiverse in December. So we'll see what goes down with that.
Yeah, I think Bobby said can't wait for Loki. Yeah, Loki is gonna be Loki's gonna be good. I mean, that's the one thing I saw. I was just like, man, Loki. I'm not sure about some of these other shows, but Loki's gonna be good. I already just.
Tom Hiddleston killed it. He killed it. Loki. He's just he's the character you love to hate.
He's a more interesting character, sadly, than so at that point, and still is to me a more interesting character. But at that point, before WandaVision and Falcon and Winter Soldier came out, Loki was a more interesting character. So I was and looking at the trailer, I was just like, there's nothing in this trailer that makes me think that this is not going to be good. And plus, and also I was cool with it, even though it's kind of like happening outside of the MCU timeline. But I was like, I'm fine with it. Loki and his hijinks and his crazy stuff going on.
What happened to him when he took that? What happened to him when he took the Tesseract that time in Endgame? What happened to him? What happened?
I'm not mad about it, you know. So it's like,
and we know who the villain is. Mike said it. We know who the villain is.
Potentially.
Mike said it. We know who the villain is.
Owen Wilson is Mephisto.
Mike said it.
Hashtag Mike said
it. I'm just saying. Owen Wilson is Mephisto.
Oh, Mike just dropped it. Hashtag Mike said it. He said Mephisto. Oh, okay. All right. I'm gonna remember that. We're gonna come back and talk about this, Mike. We're gonna come back.
I'm just saying.
Okay.
So I have bad news. My iPad's about to die.
So. Yeah, no.
We gotta go.
We gotta wrap this up anyway. So thank y'all for coming, man. Thanks, Mike. I appreciate it. Let people know where they can find you at. And do you have anything that's coming up you want to tell people about before you get out of here? I'll leave
If I have anything coming up, so I have this short film coming out in the near future called The Director, co-starring John here. Short horror film, not too very long, but follow me on IG or Twitter. You will get updates on that consistently at Mikey D. Nunoz. For me, that's all I have. Thank you for listening to me babble for about 2 hours.
Hey man, it was great. I love it. Yeah, and if you need to go ahead and exit out, go ahead and exit out, and I'm not gonna be. It's cool. It's all good.
All right, y'all.
Nice to meet you, Mike. Great. Yeah, no worries.
Nice to meet you, man. All right, and Amari, let people know where they can meet you at.
You can meet me at Amari Dixon. Currently, I just came back from Minneapolis documenting, some stuff with the George Floyd verdict and the Devonta Wright funeral. But I'm also a professional photographer, events, weddings, portraits, things like that, headshots. Whatever you need photographic wise, hit me up. But you can see some of my work there, and my social justice activism work there as well. So yeah.
Cool. I think there was a great episode to me. Gave the people a lot to look forward to. So we'll see how that goes. Again, I am your host, John F. Thomas. Put it up there so y'all can see that I am the host, John. No, that's fine. Anyway, I appreciate y'all being here. I appreciate everybody tuning in. If you want to support this channel and you want to see more of these things, more of these thought panels and like, what's going to happen next? Or if you want to just contribute, to see me review a TV show. If you want me to review something in particular, just give $1, I'll review a favorite show upon request. You can give $5, I'll review a movie upon request. Give $10, I'll review an entire season of a TV show that you love upon request. I'll watch it and I'll review it. Or if you just want to just give me any of those, or give this channel, Real Review, any of those, like, hey, I just appreciate what you do. I want to support Black business. I want to support Black media. Here's $1. It doesn't hurt me to give you $1. Go to anchor.fm/real review/support. Again, it's anchor.fm/real review/support. If you want to just give it just to be out of the kindness of your heart, cool. If you want to give it and have me review something, send me a message. Hey, man, I gave you $10. You need to review this. Say, oh, okay, my bad. I got you. I'll go ahead and do it. I get on it. Don't beat me up. So yeah, because I don't have time for any beef in the streets. But anyway, we out of here. We out here. And we'll see y'all the next time, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. Again, hit the like button, share this video so that people can see it. And leave a comment. Let us know your thoughts. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think that any of us are wrong? Do you think we're right? Wrong. If you like John Walker, comment that you like John Walker. Okay, I'll die on this hill. Actually, you know what? He's actually who America is. So I don't know what. That's why y'all mad. That's what America really is. So
I'm gonna go hashtag he said it.
Hashtag not my cap. No, just playing. All right. I'll see y'all. Peace.
Bye.